Okay, so you know how we're always digging into the latest advancements, and this stuff sometimes feels like it's straight out of science fiction.
Yeah, definitely. Like we're living in the future, but it never seems to move fast enough, right?
Right. Well, you sent over some material on TeselaGen's Discover Toolkit, and let me tell you, this one feels like we're about to blow past some serious boundaries in scientific discovery.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I saw this. It's not just about doing things faster either, which is always nice, but using AI to actually amplify our ability to make breakthroughs.
So can we just dive right into it?
Yeah.
Because this Discover Toolkit, it seems like a game changer.
Well, sure, let's do it.
So maybe we start by painting a picture for our listeners. What is this toolkit? What does it actually do?
Okay, so imagine, right, you're a scientist, you got tons of data, a really complex problem you're trying to solve.
Which, let's be honest, that's like every scientist ever.
Ah, totally. But this toolkit, it's like having this incredible research assistant who can sift through all that data for you. It can see patterns we might miss, make connections, and point us in totally new directions.
Okay, so that's cool and all, but how does it actually work in practice? Give me an example.
Okay, so say you're developing a new antibody, maybe for a disease that's been really hard to treat. One of the toughest things is figuring out the binding affinity, how well that antibody will actually latch onto its target.
And that's crucial, right? Because if the antibody doesn't bind, the treatment won't work.
Exactly. And traditionally, you had to do a ton of trial and error in the lab.
Yeah.
But with this Discover toolkit, you can actually use predictive modeling.
Predictive modeling, so seeing into the future of the experiment before you even start.
Exactly. You feed it all your data, like the antibody structure, the characteristics of its target, all that, and the AI algorithms get to work. They analyze everything, find patterns, and can actually predict how well that antibody will bind before you even synthesize a single molecule.
Wow. Okay, so you can avoid a lot of dead ends that way. But, in the materials you sent, there was this other aspect that really blew my mind, this idea that Discover Toolkit can actually come up with totally new ideas, new molecules to investigate.
That's wild. Right. It's using what are called generative models.
Hmm.
It's like imagine you fed an AI every novel ever written. It would learn the patterns of language, storytelling, all of it. And then, get this, it could start generating its own stories.
So you're telling me this toolkit can write the next great American novel?
Haha. Not quite. But it can do something very similar with molecules. Discover Toolkit's been trained on these huge data sets of existing molecules, so it learns what works, what doesn't, the rules, the relationships. Then it can use that knowledge to suggest entirely new molecules. Like it could design a completely new peptide or protein domain, totally customized to fit what you're trying to achieve.
That is some next level stuff. But all of this sounds amazing in theory. How does it actually play out when you're in the lab?
Well, that's where the Discover Toolkit gets really interesting. It uses something called Bayesian optimization to actually guide the experiments.
Okay, break that down for me. What is Bayesian optimization?
It's like this. Think about an artist starting with a rough sketch. With each brushstroke, they step back, they look at it, make adjustments, and refine the image. Bayesian optimization is kind of like that, but for experiments. Every experiment you do generates more data, right? Well, that data goes right back into the system, and it refines the next set of experiments, making them smarter and more efficient. It's this constant learning process that lets you get to those breakthroughs way, way faster.
So it's like the AI is learning alongside the scientists, and they're both getting smarter and more efficient.
You got it. It's like this feedback loop of constant improvement.
That's incredible. And, it's not just hypothetical. The materials you sent had this really cool example from the Novo Nordisk Foundation Center for Biosustainability. They use Discover Toolkit to engineer the aromatic amino acid metabolism in yeast, which, I'm not going to lie, I had to look that up, but it's a pretty big deal.
Oh, absolutely. And that's just one example. Imagine what this could mean for developing new antibiotics that can tackle drug-resistant bacteria. We're talking about potentially saving millions of lives.
Hmm.
Or using it to engineer crops that can thrive in really harsh conditions.
Yeah.
That would be huge for tackling food security in a changing climate.
It's mind-boggling to think about the possibilities, but one thing I noticed in what you send over, TeselaGen seems to really be emphasizing flexibility with this toolkit, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that really impresses me about their approach. They've designed a platform that really adapts to the user. Like researchers can come in with their own data, build their own models, and they have total control. Or if they want something a bit more plug and play, they can use TeselaGen's existing algorithms and models.
Yeah.
It makes this incredibly powerful technology accessible to everyone, from small research labs to huge biomanufacturing companies.
It makes you wonder what the future holds as AI keeps getting more sophisticated. Like, what will this technology be capable of in 5, 10 years?
It's hard to even fathom, right?
It is. But what we do know is that tools like Discover Toolkit have the potential to truly revolutionize so many different fields. And that's something worth getting excited about.
Definitely. And if any of our listeners out there are as intrigued as we are, we'll be sure to include some links to TeselaGen so you can check it out yourselves.
Absolutely. Until next time.